I welcome you to this session of e-learning in the subject of biochemistry. The topic to be dealt today is translation. Translation, as you know, is the protein biosynthesis. So the process of protein biosynthesis or translation shall be discussed in the topic today. This topic is being taken by Dr. Preeti Padmanabhan. Specific learning objectives. At the end of the learning session, the learner will be able to explain the process of protein biosynthesis in prokaryotes as well as eukaryotes, explain post-translational processing, all the post-translational modifications taking place, trace the post-translational events like protein sorting, secretion, and targeting, and enumerate the inhibitors of protein synthesis. This is the central dogma of molecular biology, which we had dealt under the RNA synthesis or transcription. A quick review through it. DNA capable of self-replication to form DNA. So DNA replication is possible. By the process of transcription, mRNA may be formed, and from mRNA, the topic which we are going to discuss in detail today, that is translation, wherein mRNA is utilized to form proteins on the ribosomal machinery. Ribosomes are the cell organelles on which the process of protein biosynthesis or translation occurs. Now, ribosomes are cell organelles made up of ribosomal RNA and proteins. So there are two types of ribosomes. In prokaryotes, they are known by the 70S. So that is, the larger subunit is 50S and the smaller subunit is 30S. Together they give us 70S. And in the eukaryotes, it is 60S and 40S subunit, which together form 80S subunit. Now, what does S stands for? It stands for the Swedberg unit. It is based on the sedimentation of the ribosomes on centrifugation. And Swedberg unit is a unit which defines it. Now, in the central dogma, it is also possible that RNA is converted back to DNA by the reverse transcriptase. So this is the molecular pathway of genetic information, the flow of information, and it was formulated by the scientist Francis Crick. Now we come to translation process, and translation is the process of protein biosynthesis. It is occurring in the cytoplasm, and as mentioned, it is occurring on the cell organelle ribosome. 70S in case of prokaryotes and 80S in case of eukaryotes. The mRNA is utilized in the protein biosynthesis. Initially, it is synthesized in the nucleus and then it is transported to the cytoplasm, and wherein the mRNA is translated, utilized for the process of protein biosynthesis. In which direction? From 5' end to 3' end. Now, what does the mRNA contain? The mRNA contains the triplet nucleotides, the triplet sequence of nucleotides, that is, nucleotides taken 3 at a time. Those specific basic units of these nucleotides, ribonucleotides, are taken in the form of triplet, are called as codon, singularly codon, and in plural genetic code. Now each codon is specific for a particular amino acid, but one amino acid may have more than one codon. So please read up the characteristics of genetic code to understand what I was trying to say. And further, the polypeptide chain is synthesized with the first amino acid which is attached is from the amino terminal end. So what is the direction of synthesis of the new polypeptide chain when it is synthesized? What is the polypeptide chain? It is nothing but the polymer of amino acids or the new protein which is being synthesized on the ribosomal unit, right? So the polypeptide chain is synthesized in which direction? From the amino end to the carboxyl end. Remember, proteins are polymers of amino acids, and these amino acids are linked by peptide linkage. What is the peptide linkage? CONH linkage. So which end is synthesized first? The amino end. The NH end is synthesized first. And then as the chain grows on, the growth goes on, it goes on from the amino terminal to the carboxyl terminal. Means the last amino acid to be added will be at the carboxyl terminal. Now, translation or protein biosynthesis is divided into 5 steps or 5 phases. First one is activation of amino acid. Second, initiation. Third, elongation. Fourth, termination. And fifth, post-translational processing, or it is also known as post-translational modification. So we start with the step, that is activation of amino acids. Now, this amino acids, 20 of them are present in the cytoplasm at the time of protein biosynthesis. All are available, and depending upon which amino acid is required, that amino acid is activated. Now, for this activation, what is required is an enzyme is required, and tRNA is also required. tRNA is nothing but your transfer RNA. Now, which enzyme is playing a role? Enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetases activates each of the amino acid. Depending upon which amino acid is entering at the site on the ribosome, there are 2 sites on the ribosome, 3 sites, and the whichever has to enter, that depends upon the enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetase. Now, this amino acyl tRNA synthetase activates the amino acid. And this amino acyl tRNA synthetase is also recognized by the transfer RNA for that particular amino acid. It has got a region called as D arm on the transfer RNA, wherein the transfer RNA recognizes that particular amino acid. So that specific amino acyl tRNA synthetase will only attach to that particular amino acid. Again, the amino acid, after being activated, it is attached to the tRNA. At which site? At the CCA end or the 3' end. We'll come to that. First of all, enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetase activates the amino acid. There are at least 1 tRNA for each of the 20 amino acids. Approximately, if a number has to be quoted, it is about 31 tRNAs are present in eukaryotes for the cytosolic protein synthesis. And in case of mitochondrial protein synthesis, that is protein synthesis in the mitochondria, about 22 tRNAs are approximately present. Now, the D arm of tRNA is very important for the recognition of the enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetase. The CC3' end of the tRNA, of the acceptor arm of the tRNA, carries the amino acid. So what is the linkage taking place? The carboxyl end of the amino acid is attached to the hydroxyl end of the 3' end of the tRNA. That is the linkage which is taking place. The amino acid is first activated. Initially, what happens before it is attached to the tRNA? It is activated with the help of ATP. Energy is to be provided to the amino acid to be activated. Then the carboxyl group of the amino acid is esterified. The chemical reaction taking place is esterification. Esterified with the 3' hydroxyl group of the tRNA or transfer RNA. And at this juncture, the amino acid is said to be activated and the transfer RNA or tRNA is said to be charged. It is charged. Okay. Then activation of amino acid. What is the reaction taking place? That is being depicted in this slide. Amino acid plus the transfer RNA plus the energy imparted in the form of adenosine triphosphate in the presence of the amino acyl tRNA synthetase enzyme, amino acyl tRNA, that combination is formed, plus ATP is converted to what? AMP, 2-pyrophosphate is liberated. In this reaction, ATP is hydrolyzed to AMP, and so two high energy phosphate bonds are consumed and liberated. Okay, so it is in the form of pyrophosphate that it is liberated. The second stage in protein biosynthesis or translation is initiation, after the activation of amino acids. So on the left hand corner you've got methionine tRNA, which is the activated amino acid, the first amino acid which is to be added, methionine, and the tRNA is charged with the methionine, plus GTP, plus eukaryotic initiation factor 2, plus the ribosomal unit 40S in case of eukaryotes. Once you're explaining in eukaryotes, stick to eukaryotes and explain the difference for prokaryotes wherever necessary. So we are explaining it in eukaryotes. So 40S small ribosomal unit, and eukaryotic initiation factor 3, eukaryotic initiation factor 1. So in total there are 3 initiation factors. Remember, in protein biosynthesis there are many protein factors also involved along with the enzymes and the codons, anticodon, tRNA, mRNA, etc. There are also protein factors involved. So along with the 3 factors, the 40S ribosomal unit becomes 43S pre-initiation complex, and the methionine charged tRNA is attached to the ribosomal unit. Then factor 4 is involved. ATP plus ADP plus phosphate is ATP is converted to ADP plus phosphate, and the mRNA is attached to the small ribosomal unit. The marker sequence on the small ribosomal unit where the mRNA attaches, I told you, is a Kozak sequence in eukaryotes and Shine-Dalgarno sequence in prokaryotes. So AUG is the first codon. So the extended portion on the left hand side of the second figure, that is the region for the Kozak sequence, and then the first codon AUG base pairs with the anticodon on the tRNA called as which is complementary UAC. So after UAC is base pairing with AUG, complementary codon, anticodon, codon base pairing is taking place. The first amino acid is recognized. Till then it is not recognized by the ribosomal unit. And then the initiation factor 5 and initiation factor 2 plus the 60S ribosomal unit assembly is joined. So the total 80S ribosomal unit is constructed for protein biosynthesis. The first methionine amino acid is recognized due to anticodon codon pairing, and this methionine is entering at the 60S ribosomal unit, at which site? The peptidyl site or the P site, and the A site or the acceptor site is left empty for the incoming next amino acid. Now, incoming next amino acid will depend upon the next codon present on the mRNA. So, the next codon depicted over here is ACC. So, whichever amino acid is to be entered depends upon the codon on the mRNA. So depending upon that, the amino acid charged with tRNA, the activated amino acid, will enter via the acceptor site. And then again codon anticodon pairing will take place. So that is the next step, that is elongation. So initiation steps, UAC is the anticodon on methionine tRNA, and AUG is the start signal or the start codon. P site is the peptidyl site on the ribosomal unit, and A site is the amino acyl site, or it is also called as the acceptor site. Ribosomes contain 2 receptor sites for the tRNA molecules. P site or peptidyl site carries the peptidyl tRNA, peptidyl it is, okay, and it carries the growing peptide chain. A site or amino acyl site or the acceptor sites carries the new incoming tRNA with the amino acid to be added next. Now, this is the elongation phase. Elongation phase is a phase wherein all the incoming amino acids are added one at a time. So what is, as the amino acids are being added, the old amino acid has to be peptide bonded with the incoming amino acid, so that will take place, and the chain of amino acid has to be synthesized in the elongation phase. So let us see how the process of elongation occurs in protein biosynthesis or translation. To the left hand side, look at the first ribosomal unit. There is a methionine recognized at the peptidyl site, and there is attachment of new amino acid to the A site. So depending upon the codon on the mRNA ACC, there is the threonine tRNA which is entered, and it has got the anticodon complementary, that is UGG. So UGG is complementary to ACC, and the second amino acid is recognized at which site? The acceptor site, or as it is mentioned, amino acyl site. A site. So then after that, GTP is providing energy. It is converted to GDP plus phosphate, and elongation factor 1 is required in eukaryotes. In the case of prokaryotes, it's elongation factor T small u. Elongation factor T small u, TU. Okay. And what happens is methionine forms a peptide linkage with threonine. Now, if a peptide linkage is to be formed, peptide bond formation has occurred. The methionine moves from the P site amino acid and it forms a peptide linkage with the threonine. And the linkage is taking place. Methionine is the amino terminal and the carboxyl terminal forms a peptide linkage with the threonine. Okay, so CONH linkage is formed, right? So peptide bond is formed at the acceptor site. Now the next amino acid has to enter depending upon the codon on the mRNA. Now for that, before that, the empty tRNA at the P site has to exit. So how will that exit? It is occurring by the process of translocation. What happens is the entire ribosomal unit, pay attention to the second ribosomal unit. The entire ribosomal unit. So what does the ribosomal unit consist of? The P site, A site, the larger subunit and the smaller subunit. It moves along the mRNA. If it is moving along the black strand of an mRNA by three codons, by three unit triplet forward, sorry, three base pairs forward or one codon forward, that is correct, one codon forward. So when the ribosomal unit entire complex moves one codon forward, what will happen? The old A site will become the new P site. The old A site will become the new P site. So you see, if in the figure 2 at the A site you see methionine, threonine and that transfer RNA, at the new translocated ribosome, the A site has become the P site and you get the methionine, threonine at the P site. So you understand, the ribosome has moved one codon forward. Now what happens to the empty tRNA at P site? It exits via a site called as exit site. It is not shown in the diagram, but there is a site of exit, simple exit, and through that small area, it is an imaginary site on the ribosome. Through that area, the empty tRNA, which has decanted the methionine, it goes out through the exit site. Now the peptidyl site has got two amino acid, that is, or the P site has got two amino acid, methionine and threonine, right? Then the new amino acid enters via the acceptor site, that is the third amino acid. That depends, that is dictated by what? The codon on the mRNA. So it is GGG. So which is the amino acid which has to enter with the help of GTP converted to GDP plus phosphate, and elongation factor 2 in the case of eukaryotes and elongation factor TS in case of prokaryotes. It is glycine. So glycine is the next amino acid. Again peptide bond formation occurs between threonine and glycine. Again translocation or movement of the ribosomal unit by one codon forward occurs, and then the incoming amino acid is entering via the acceptor site. So this process of elongation continues many n number of times, depending upon what the number of amino acid present in that particular protein. So if it is an insulin protein, depending upon the number of amino acid it inherently possesses, that many times the process of elongation phase will continue. Now, this translocation process is explained in depth. The tRNA is fixed at P site and does not carry any amino acid and is therefore released from the ribosome. That is the empty decanted tRNA after if the first amino acid is methionine, methionine base pairs with threonine as in our example, and the empty tRNA exits via E site. Then the whole ribosome moves over the mRNA through the distance of one codon, or as I was trying to say, 3 bases forward. Okay. Then the peptidyl tRNA is translocated to the P site, and this is done with the help of elongation factor 2. Peptidyl tRNA means the first two amino acid with the peptide bond. So it is called as peptidyl tRNA is translocated or moved to the P site. This is done with the help of elongation factor 2. The A site is ready to receive another amino acid tRNA. It can be the third one now. And then the fourth, then the fifth. It goes on this process bearing the appropriate anticodon. So the amino acid tRNA bearing the appropriate anticodon is invited depending upon the codon sequence on the mRNA. The new amino acid tRNA is fixed on the A site or the acceptor site by base pairing with the mRNA codon. Translocation requires hydrolysis or energy requirement is there. So GTP is converted to GDP. Hydrolysis of GTP to GDP and phosphate occurs. Now for each peptide bond formation, high energy phosphate bonds are utilized. So where all it is required, 2 for the initiation or activation step, 1 for the elongation factor 1 step GTP to GDP, 1 for the elongation factor 2 step GTP to GDP. Then actual peptide bond formation or the peptide transferase step does not require any energy because amino acids are already activated. So what that CONH linkage which is taking place over there at that particular juncture, no energy is required because already the amino acid is activated. Already उसमें बहुत energy भरा हुआ होता है. So the peptide bond formation occurs naturally. Okay. Then further, 1 ATP is used for initiation complex formation. Further, 1 ATP is used for initiation complex formation and 1 GTP is used for ATS ribosome formation and 1 GTP for termination. This is the total amount of energy required. 1 ATP is required for initiation complex formation, that is taken into consideration, and 1 GTP for ATS ribosomal, the assembly of the ribosomal unit, and 1 GTP is required, remember, in the termination process. So after elongation comes termination. Termination of translation. Now look at the figure on the left hand side. At the peptide site or the P site, the n number of amino acids have been added and a chain of proteins have been synthesized, and the n number of amino acids have been added, and this chain is ready on the P site. Now the next codon which happens to be for termination to take place can be UAA or UAG or UGA, Amber, Opal or Ochre. The presence of this codon, as soon as this codon comes into picture on the mRNA of the ribosomal unit, then termination is initiated. So the acceptor end, there will not be any incoming charged tRNA or activated amino acid. What will happen? GTP is converted to GDP and suddenly the free protein is liberated into the cytoplasm. Free 60S unit and free 40S unit and free mRNA is disintegrated into the cytoplasm. The dissociated tRNA, free tRNA exits. Now there is no need of the exit site. It will come naturally into the cytoplasm. So this is nothing but the termination of translation which requires GTP as energy and GTP is converted to GDP. So which are the termination codons or the stop codons or the punctuator codons or the nonsense codons? UAA, UAG or UGA. Presence of either one of them will cause translation termination or protein biosynthesis termination. Now, the process of protein biosynthesis is taking place on each ribosomal unit. The assembly of ribosomes on the mRNA is on an mRNA. In the diagram, there is an mRNA depicted from the 5' end to the 3' end, right? And on this mRNA, there are several such ribosomal units with the small and the large ribosomal unit. And on each ribosomal unit, pay attention, on each ribosomal unit, a different protein is being synthesized. So that is how complex the process of protein biosynthesis is. On each ribosomal unit, a particular protein is being synthesized. So all the 5 steps of protein biosynthesis occurring on the first ribosomal unit, the second ribosomal unit, third, fourth, and so on. So each protein is at a different juncture of being synthesized. One is at the shorter junction, one is longer, one is very longer, one is completed protein biosynthesis. So there are growing polypeptides on the ribosomal unit. Such an assembly of the ribosomal unit on the mRNA is called as polyribosome or simply as polysomes. At the end, in the termination, you can see at the end of the mRNA, when the termination is occurring, it is occurring uh, as described in the process of termination of translation. Then there is the signal hypothesis. The signal hypothesis is to lead the protein into the endoplasmic reticulum. That means the protein is charged with a signal peptide, and the signal peptide also has a signal recognition particle also attached to it, which helps it dock or rest on the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum. And then due to the docking, first when the nascent protein is being synthesized, the signal peptide, which is a unit of 15 to 25 um, amino acids long, it is attached to the small protein which is chain which is being synthesized. Once it is started to be synthesized, then there is that is a signal peptide. Then there is a signal peptide particle which attaches to the signal peptide, and it helps it to dock meaning rest on the endoplasmic membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum. And then due to this docking, it gives a support to the protein being synthesized, and further synthesis occurs. After the synthesis, the signal peptide, it is disintegrated by the peptidase enzyme. The signal peptide is disintegrated, and then the particular nascent protein or the newly synthesized protein is directed towards the different mature protein is directed towards the different areas where the nascent protein is required. Now, to which area it is being sent depends upon the address like location on the amino terminal. And this amino terminal end has certain sequences of amino acids. Just remember, it has certain sequences of amino acids which dictates to which area or which location that particular nascent protein is to be carried to. Okay, now this is regarding the proteins being synthesized on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum is when the ribosomes are attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. Now suppose they are cytosolic proteins, then the ribosomes are present simply in the cytoplasm as in the previous figure, and the proteins are synthesized into the cytoplasm. Again, there is a sequence of signal peptide which directs it to the particular location. Okay, so this is the signal hypothesis or the um, direction given by the signal peptide to lead the protein into the endoplasmic reticulum and then to the further location within the cell. Now we come, that was protein sorting that we had discussed, and then there is post-translational processing. What happens to the nascent or newly formed protein? Now suppose it is insulin. It is synthesized in the form of proinsulin. So there is proteolytic cleavage possible. Proinsulin is converted to insulin, or there is subunit aggregation, wherein certain subunits must be brought together, as in hemoglobin and immunoglobulin, or there may be simply folding of the protein brought about by units called as chaperones. Now, chaperones, it is initiated from the English word. The word is derived from the English word called chaperones, which actually means older ladies in charge of younger girls who are at a social function. So they guard the younger girls so that these younger girls don't socialize too much. So in the UK, or in the English era, you can say in that way, that will be more correct. During that time, these ladies used to guide, like a guide, they used to be present in an event where youngsters intermingle. So protein folding is brought about by chaperones. So it is guarded by these protein factors. What are exactly chaperones? They are protein factors which bring about the folding or the three-dimensional structure of the nascent protein or the newly formed protein is decided. Now, modification of amino acids occur, such as gamma carboxylation of glutamic acid of prothrombin, wherein, if you remember from vitamin K, which is required as a coenzyme in gamma carboxylation of glutamic acid, and prothrombin is being synthesized, then in that step, the vitamin K is dependent and prothrombin is converted to thrombin. Then hydroxylation of proline and lysine in collagen, it is vitamin C dependent, ascorbic acid dependent. The hydroxylation reaction of the amino acid proline and lysine is another post-translational modification. Then phosphorylation reaction, wherein addition of simple phosphate groups is also a post-translational modification of the newly formed protein, or glycosylation, or just addition of carbohydrate groups to the newly formed protein, or methylation of histones. Over here, methylation of histones or addition of methyl groups to the lysine. You know, histones are rich in arginine and lysine amino acids. So addition of methyl groups to the lysine amino acids brings about an increase in transcription. So it switches on transcription. What is transcription? The RNA, it is responsible for bringing about RNA synthesis. So if immediately a particular protein, this histones are have to initiate transcription, then what will occur? Methylation of histones. So methylation of histones is a trigger for transcription to switch on, that is synthesis of RNA in the chromatin of the uh, cell. And if it is unmethylated, meaning transcription will be switched off. So that is the reaction which is initiated by methylation of histones. It is called as acetylation, or deacetylation may also bring about a switching on mechanism of transcription or switch off of transcription. As far as histones is concerned in the nucleosome structure and chromatin structure in the higher organization of DNA, if you remember. Now, this is a diagram to show the post-translational processing of insulin by proteolytic cleavage. The diagram at the very top, pre-pro-insulin. Pre-pro-insulin means there is a region called pre-region which is not required, which is removed, and then pro-insulin is formed. Internal dipeptide disulfide linkages are formed, and pro-insulin is formed. Then the A chain and B chain are linked together by disulfide linkage. A chain, there is an interdisulfide linkage, and on the A chain there is an intradisulfide linkage also, and the mature insulin is formed. So from pre-pro-insulin, pro-insulin, and then mature insulin. All this, what is taking place is nothing but your post-translational modification. Post-translational modification can be reversible or irreversible. Reversible types are disulfide bridge formation, glycosylation, addition of carbohydrate group, phosphorylation, addition of phosphate group, acylation, addition of acyl group, acetylation, or ADP, ribosylation. Irreversible ones are proteolysis, breakdown of the protein, then ubiquitination, wherein they are directed towards the lysosomes and the death of that protein occurs. I mean, it is degraded, sorry. And lysine addition is again a post-translational modification, which is lysine hydroxylation and proline hydroxylation is irreversible modification and collagen formation occurs. Methylation again is a irreversible post-translational modification. Now we come to what is known as protein targeting. After the protein is sorted and they are targeted to the different location, what happens if they don't reach the correct address? What happens if they don't reach the correct location? The nascent protein, the newly synthesized protein, does not reach the correct location. Then certain types of diseases result, and these are due to the defects in protein targeting. First one is Zellweger syndrome, and it is due to the symptom is defective oxidation of very long chain fatty acid, VLCFA, very long chain fatty acid. Here the correct address is not printed on the protein packet or the nascent protein, so it could not be delivered to the correct location on the in the cell. So what happens? There is defective oxidation of very long chain fatty acid in Zellweger syndrome. The perioximal enzymes are produced, they are produced, but their entry into the peroxisomes are denied. The peroxisomal enzymes are produced, but their entry into the peroxisomes is denied. So which is a defective protein over here? The peroxisomal enzymes. Enzymes are protein. They are produced, but their entry into the peroxisomes is denied, and this leads to they are not reaching the correct location, the peroxisome. So this leads to the insufficient oxidation of very long chain fatty acid, and there is accumulation of very long chain fatty acid in the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, leading to neurological impairment and death in childhood. That is Zellweger syndrome. Then there is a defect called as primary hyperoxaluria, wherein there are kidney stones deposited at an early age. This defect is due to protein targeting defect. The enzyme which is not reaching the correct location is alanine glycoxylate aminotransferase. Alanine glycoxylate aminotransferase is seen in the mitochondria instead of reaching the normal location, that is perioxisome. So it is transferred by mistake into the mitochondria instead of the correct location, that is the perioxisomes. And because of that you get primary hyperoxaluria, or which causes deposition of kidneys. Then there is familial hypercholesterolemia, which is also a defect due to defect in the deficient transport signals. That is one condition, familial hypercholesterolemia, defect in the transport signals of the protein concerned. Then inclusion cell disease. It is due to the non-entry of the required enzyme into the lysosomes. So mannose-6 phosphate, which is the marker to the target enzyme to the lysosomes, is absent in this disease. It is like the signal peptide, this mannose-6 phosphate, and the marker to the target enzyme to the lysosomes is absent in this disease, and due to that you get the inclusion cell disease. And due to the lysosomes, which are suicidal bags, as you know, they are not able to carry out the normal function, and you get the inclusion cell disease. Now when a protein is being synthesized, it assumes the three-dimensional structure. Now various three-dimensional structures may be formed, but out of it only the perfect one will be included for the biological activity. And what is that dictated by? It is dictated by the chaperones, or the protein factors which enable the folding. Abnormal folding of the proteins may lead to protein misfolding diseases. There are chaperonopathies, as they are called as chaperonopathies. They are diseases due to the misfolding of protein. Chaperones help to produce the correct spatial three-dimensional structure of the newly formed proteins. Chaperones attach to the nascent polypeptide chain and prevent the wrong foldings. So only those foldings are allowed which are in the correct direction, which are required for the biological activity of the protein. They help in the assembly of the tertiary and quaternary structure of proteins. I take you back to chemistry of proteins, wherein there is the primary, secondary, tertiary is the 3D structure, and the quaternary is the assembly of the subunits, as in hemoglobin, right? So the chaperones help in the assembly of the tertiary and the quaternary structure of proteins. Chaperonopathies are the disorders resulting from sick chaperones, or the chaperones are non-functional. They're not functioning properly. These diseases progresses with age. So as age progresses, these type of diseases may occur. That is what it means. Now, differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic translation. First one is the ribosomal unit. It is 30S and 50S in the prokaryotes to form the 70S. In eukaryotes, it is 40S and 60S to form the 80S ribosomal unit. Initiation in the translation starts even before the transcription is completed in the prokaryotes. There is no processing of mRNA. Transcription and translation are well separated. First the mRNA is processed, and then only then it is translated. If you remember, heterogeneous nuclear RNA is converted to mRNA, only then it is translated. Then the consensus sequence, the first initial amino acid to be recognized is methionine, and the initiating codon is AUG on the mRNA, recognized by Shine-Dalgarno sequence in prokaryotes, and the initiating codon AUG is recognized by the Kozak sequence on the ribosomal unit by the Kozak sequence on the eukaryotes. So these are regions on the mRNA which attaches to the ribosomal unit, the smaller subunit in the beginning. Then initiator tRNA, the initiating tRNA carries the formulated methionine. So the methionine is formulated in case of the first tRNA which enters the peptidyl site in the case of prokaryotes, whereas the initiating tRNA carries simple methionine amino acid in case of eukaryotes. The formation of the initiation complex. The initiation factors and GTP hydrolysis are required for binding of the small ribosomal unit to mRNA. Several initiation factors are required in case of eukaryotes, and GTP hydrolysis is required for the formation of initiation complex. The peptide bond formation, the peptidyl transferase enzyme is a ribozyme. It's an example of a ribozyme, and it is present in the 23S of the ribosomal unit of the ribosome in case of prokaryotes, whereas the peptidyl transferase activity is in the 28S ribosomal unit of the larger subunit of the eukaryotes. The post-translational events are mainly co-translational modifications in case of prokaryotes, and the antibiotics in the which are active in the prokaryotes will be discussed. They are different from those in eukaryotes. The post-translational modification in eukaryotes, it leads to protein sorting, protein exportation, protein localization, and there are toxins like diphtheria toxin, ricin from castor seeds, puromycin and cyclohexyamide, which inhibit the translation in eukaryotes. Now, antibiotics which inhibit translation in prokaryotes are streptomycin, tetracycline. These are antibiotics which inhibit translation in prokaryotes. Reversible inhibitors in bacteria. Antibiotics are bacteriostatic. Tetracycline can inhibit the attachment of amino-acyl tRNA to the acceptor site of the ribosome. So tetracycline is an antibiotic which prevents the attachment. They are bacteriostatic. They attack the prokaryotic cell of the bacteria. So these are inhibiting protein biosynthesis in bacteria. At which stage that is being discussed? That is, tetracycline inhibits the attachment of amino-acyl tRNA to the acceptor site of the ribosome. Chloramphenicol inhibits the peptidyl transferase activity of the bacteria. The peptide bond formation ribozyme which is required, it is inhibited by chloramphenicol in case of bacteria. Then erythromycin and lindamycin prevent translocation process. The movement of the ribosome over the mRNA is prevented by erythromycin and lindamycin in prokaryotes or in bacteria. Thereby what? The inhibition of protein biosynthesis occurs. Irreversible inhibitors in bacteria. These are antibiotics like bactericidal, streptomycin, which binds to the 30S ribosomal unit of the bacterial ribosome, and it causes the misreading of the mRNA, and therefore totally inhibits the protein biosynthesis. If there is a misreading of the codon, you can imagine a different amino acid itself is added. So it brings about total inhibition of protein biosynthesis, which is irreversible inhibitor, which cannot be reversed by removing the antibiotic from the site, and the protein formed is totally it cannot be accepted. Inhibitors of protein biosynthesis and eukaryotes. So we are already named it puromycin, cycloheximide, and diphtheria toxin. Puromycin attaches to the acceptor site of the ribosome, and it brings about an inhibition of protein biosynthesis. Cycloheximide, it inhibits the peptidyl transferase in the 60S ribosomal unit. Peptidyl transferase enzyme is inhibited in the 60S ribosomal unit by the ribosome by cycloheximide. Diphtheria toxin is liberated by the bacteria Corynebacterium diphtheria, and this when this toxin, it brings about inhibition of protein biosynthesis in the mammalian system. That brings us to an end of the e-learning session in the topic of translation or protein biosynthesis. This has been covered in, this just gives you an outline. Please read up more information, add up to your knowledge by reading from one or more prescribed textbook. Happy learning to you. Thank you for your attentive hearing from the beginning to the end. Thank you so much.